This video is titled Rebel to Racism, Memphis Battles White Supremacy, Black Betrayal, and Trump Troops to Defend Dr. King's Dream. You see, this news release is part of a comprehensive story titled Rebel to Racism. The story began when Black Memphis female attorney Linda Nettles Harris joined the fight against white developer Kemp Conrad proposed a $1.25 billion jail complex in the historic Memphis African American community of New Chicago. See, the jail was to be placed at the former 71-acre tract of the old Firestone Tire and Rubber Company. This story reveals Memphis white supremacy, racism, and black-on-black racism, whereas this story encapsulates President Donald J. Trump sending federal troops to Memphis. This saga is called Rebel to Racism, a Black Memphis story. You see, there is a law called the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878. This is a federal law that generally prohibits the use of the Army and Air Force for civilian enforcement within the United States, reflecting a tradition of limiting military involvement in domestic policing. This law restricts military personnel from performing tasks like arrests, searches, and seizures specifically authorized by the Constitution or an act of Congress. You see, the 2023 census revealed Memphis as the most populated city of African Americans in America, whereas Memphis is the hallmark of white supremacy, racism, and black-on-black racism, whereas there is a practice and culture of its African American leaders to obscure, ignore, and marginalize its Black Memphis history. The case in Memphis among some black leaders, their practice is to not make their white Memphis supporters and masters uncomfortable via bringing up Memphis troubled past. Memphis was founded for one reason: cotton and wealth. Cotton and the wealth of making whites rich via black slaves. You see, in regards to American President Donald J. Trump, Tennessee is the perfect city for President Donald J. Trump to break the law, dominate, and show Memphis as a weak and ineffective city run by unqualified leaders, whereas Memphis is the perfect city to encourage and inspire MAGA. You see, President Donald J. Trump is sending federal troops to Memphis is a way to enhance MAGA power, whereas whites can express dominance and white supremacy. President Trump sending federal troops to Memphis makes Memphis the model and the whipping boy of white supremacy, whereas MAGA whites can celebrate Memphis as the city where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was killed, and white supremacy emerged via the Memphis Cotton Museum. You see, in Memphis, Donald Trump wants to make Memphis a whipping boy. You see, a whipping boy is literally a boy who was historically educated with a young prince and took punishment for the prince's faults instead of the prince himself. Figuratively, a whipping boy is someone who is unfairly blamed or made a scapegoat for the mistakes of others or for a group's failure. In other words, President Donald J. Trump can make Memphis the scapegoat for his failures, and they can blame Memphis and foreigners and blacks for things that whites have not accomplished. You see, President Donald J. Trump, in sending federal troops to Memphis, is a whooping boy symbol of white control, fear, and a model for MAGA, while the issue of Black Memphis is greater than more federal investment. The issue in Black Memphis is its missing cultural restoration and the historical justice, which is not exemplary of Memphis Mayor Paul Young, who capitulates to white supremacy. You see, It was Black leader Whitney Young who said it is better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than have an opportunity and not be prepared. You see, Memphis, Tennessee is not prepared for the actions of President Donald J. Trump because Trump only respects power and pushback, whereas President Trump's role is that of a white supremacist and the rollback of Black achievement. You see, President Trump on his first day in office rolled back DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion. You see, in Memphis, Tennessee Black leaders missed the point of the historic Black liberator Frederick Douglass, who said, quote, "Power concedes nothing without demand, never have and never will." You see, President Donald J. Trump will never concede his power over Memphis Blacks unless Black Memphis leaders stand up to President Donald J. Trump. You see, the deployment of National Civil Guard troops to Memphis by President Donald J. Trump echoes a troubling and historical lineage that traces back to President Andrew Jackson, widely regarded as the architect of ethnic cleansing in America. You see, President Andrew Jackson's Indian Removal Act of 1830 forcibly displaced tens of thousands of Native Americans who were Black. You see, unknown and untold, many Native Americans were Black, and they were not brought directly from Africa, that they were already here. Look at the story of Dr. Clyde Winters. See, we're not just who has the book, we're not just Africans. See the video and learn about Black Native Americans. Our ancestors were already here. You see, many Black Indians were forcibly removed from their ancestral lands, accumulating in the Trail of Tears, a brutal match that claimed thousands of lives. What is unknown and untold in America is the story of our Black Native ancestors. You see, the founding of Memphis itself on May 22nd, 1819, was orchestrated by Andrew Jackson along with John Overton and James Winchester following the Caress cession of Chickasaw land, a foundational act of dispossession that set the tone for Memphis' racialized geography. You see, today, President Donald J. Trump's decision to send troops into Memphis, a majority Black city, under the guise of crime control, should raise alarm bells about the illegal use of federal power to create fear, suppress, intimidate communities of color. You see, President Trump wants to make Memphis an example, whereas Black Memphis Mayor Paul Young, as told by President Donald J. Trump, supports the idea welcome our troops in Memphis. He wants to work with Donald J. Trump. You see, this act is not isolated. It aligns with President Trump's broader pattern of targeting Black and brown-led cities, often not in Republican-controlled states where resistance is minimal. You see, the symbolism deepens when considering President Trump's admiration for Andrew Jackson in his administration delay of the Harriet Tubman placement on the $20 bill, a move many say as a rejection of Black historical recognition. You see, in this context, President Trump's actions in Memphis is not merely political maneuvers. They are part of a continuum of a racialized governance that use fear to erase, suppress, and control Black agency. The very soil of Memphis, once seized through treaties that dispossessed Native people, now bears witness to a new chapter of militarized intervention, one that demands scrutiny, resistance, and historical reckoning. You see, when a community honors its past, its struggles, triumphs, builders, thinkers, and everyday heroes, it's not just preserving artifacts, it's affirming identity, values, and continuity. Respecting history means acknowledging who paved the way and who was erased and who still needs to be seen. You see, it's a moral stance as much as a cultural one, whereas Black Memphis leaders ignored the moral stance to honor and protect Black Memphis history, whereas a selected group of Black Memphis leaders protect white supremacy. See, the story, unknown and untold, explains why Memphis is the city for President Trump and MAGA, the city of Memphis has a cotton museum and not a specific Black Memphis History museum. You see, the existence of a cotton museum at the Cotton Exchange, a site that once symbolized the economic exploitation of enslaved Black labor, stands in stark contrast to the absence of Black Memphis History Museum dedicated specifically to the full breadth of Black Memphis history. See, this isn't just a gap in structure. It's a reflection of what Memphis and its Black majority leaders choose to elevate and what these Black Memphis leaders choose to omit. You see, in Memphis, Tennessee, there exists a troubling cultural and institutional pattern of obscuring and erasing Black Memphis history. Even as the city owes its very foundation to Black labor, ingenuity, and resistance, the erasure is starkly illustrated by the presence of a cotton museum in Memphis, a space that celebrates the economic legacy of cotton while largely sidestepping the brutal exploitation of Black enslaved Black people who made that economy possible. You see, what is missing is even more telling is Black Memphis mayors. There is no Memphis museum or acknowledged solely to the history of Black Memphis, the city's rich tapestry of Black achievement, from the builders of Orange Mound to New Chicago to educators, entrepreneurs, and freedom fighters who shaped the civic life. You see, it's left fragmented or ignored while institutions like the National Civil Rights Museum or the Stax Museum of American Soul Music offer just glimpses into Black contributions. They do not center the full breadth of local Black Memphis history. You see, this selective memory is not accidental. It reflects a systematic Black-on-Black racism and a systematic effort to sanitize Memphis narrative, prioritizing palatable symbols like the blues, barbecue over the truth, Black self-determination. See, the absence of a comprehensive Black Memphis history or a Black Memphis History Museum is not just a gap in infrastructure, it is a moral failure and a planned strategy to keep Blacks in Memphis in their place that demands correction. You see, reclaiming Black history is not merely about remembrance, it's about justice, agency, restoring the rightful legacy of a people who built Memphis from the ground up. You see, in regards to Black Memphis history, silence is the hallmark, whereas the economic inequality and injustice is subject never discussed in Memphis. You see, recently the city of Memphis created a plan of white supremacy, whereas the city restructured white culture dominance, whereas the city of Memphis spent over $200 million via an unknown and untold plan of cultural superiority, a plan of white supremacy dollars. You see, or Memphis minority whites can have a place that was the former fairgrounds, now Liberty Park and Park. You see, what they did was made a place for whites while neglecting Black Orange Mound, having a place where whites can come and play volleyball in the heart of Black Memphis, right near Orange Mound. You see, the flashpoint of this story is rubber to racism. You see, this is the untold story of the sprawling 71-acre tract in the historically African-American residential community of New Chicago. You see, the 71-acre plot of land in New Chicago, where the old Firestone plant once stands as the largest undeveloped and most coveted tract of land in the entire city of Memphis, a developer's dream by any measure. You see, its sheer size, location makes it a prime target for commercial and residential expansion, with the potential to reshape the economic landscape of North Memphis. See, such a space has the potential to be a model of Black achievement worldwide. Yet, despite its allure, The land remains untouched, not because of a lack of interest, but because it is surrounded by a resilient community of black residents who refuse to sell, and a racist Black Memphis culture that refuses to develop this land. You see, the founders of New Chicago, many of whom have generational ties in this arena, represent a living barrier to outside investors, particularly white developers who view the land as a gold mine but are unable to penetrate the social and cultural fabric that protects it. You see, the tension between speculative development and community preservation reveals a deeper struggle over agency, legacy, and the right to define the future of historically black neighborhoods. You see, the neighborhood of New Chicago is roughly bounded by North Watkins to the east, Chelsea Avenue to the south, Thomas to the west, stretches north to Levee Road at Wolf River. You see, the fact that President Donald J. Trump is putting National Guards in Memphis is an opportunity to share the story of New Chicago. You see, learn the story. Click and find the website rebeltoracism.com. You see, the Black New Chicago community in Memphis, Tennessee has long stood as a working class enclave rooted in historical labor, civic pride, and community resilience. Yet, despite its deep historical significance, the community has been systematically erased from the Memphis official narrative. See, one of the few surviving public acknowledgments of its existence is a worn historical marker at the corner of Breedlove and Firestone, which reads, quote, New Chicago, organized in 1901. You see, this long sign stands as a quiet testament to the once thriving neighborhood whose contributions have been buried under decades of institutional neglect and racial marginalization. You see, the absence of written documentation about New Chicago is not accidental. It reflects a broader pattern of racial and intentional disregard for black agency and achievement in Shelby County. You see, in 1899, the Shelby County Government opened its first high school for the African Americans at Firestone and Manassas, a landmark moment in black educational achievement. However, the proximity and timing suggests that New Chicago and that pioneering school evolved together, forming a nucleus of black civic life that was then an unincorporated black community. Yet, despite this foundational role, New Chicago has been left out of Memphis historical records. You see, there are no books, no archives, no city documents that tell its story. It is as if the community was never meant to be remembered. Now, attorney Linda Nettles Harris, a fierce advocate for justice, recognized this void and took action. You see, she recruited her longtime friend, Anthony F. Elmore, Memphis' first independent 35mm theatrical filmmaker, historian, content creator, and community activist, to assist her in the fight against the proposed new jail in New Chicago. The jail plan pushed by white political figure Kemp Conrad was a blatant act of environmental and racial injustice. You see, it sought to criminalize a black residential community already burdened by decades of industrial abandonment. You see, Elmore's investigation into New Chicago revealed something even more troubling. There was not a single sentence, not a single shred of evidence documenting the community's existence prior to Firestone's arrival in 1936. Anthony F. Elmore found no digital record, no website, no archive, nothing. Elmore's search led him to the Memphis Public Library, where he confirmed that what many feared, New Chicago had been purposely written out of history. What Anthony F. Elmore uncovered was not just a lack of documentation, but a culture, a deliberate practice of erasure. You see, it was a white supremacist tradition in Memphis to marginalize black communities, and New Chicago was no exception. You see, but what shocked Elmore even more was the complicity of black leadership. Anthony F. Elmore found that some black Memphis elected officials had not only remained silent, but have actively participated in the portrayal of New Chicago. Their failure to defend the community against the jail proposal was not just political, it was spiritual. It was a denial of black history, black dignity, and black agency. You see, this revelation gave birth to a new movement called Rubber to Racism. The name itself is symbolic. Rubber refers to the Firestone Tire and Rubber Company, whose industrial footprint left behind environmental degradation and economic devastation. You see, racism refers to the continual culture and practice by both blacks and white leaders of marginalizing New Chicago. You see, Rubber to Racism is not just a slogan. It is a historical indictment and spiritual awakening. It exposed the toxic residue of institutional betrayal and demands accountability from all sides. You see, the movement gained its urgency when President Donald J. Trump is sending federal troops to Memphis, a move widely seen as an act of white supremacy and authoritarian control. You see, the deployment was not just a political maneuver, it is a symbolic assault of the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who gave his life in Memphis fighting for justice. You see, the presence of Trump troops in the city, still grappling with racial injustice, reignited the fight. You see, it became clear that Memphis was once again a battleground, not just for civil rights, but for historical truth. You see, Memphis battles white supremacy, black betrayal, Trump troops to defend Dr. King's dream. You see, this video documents the community's resistance, honors Dr. King's legacy, and exposes the forces, both external and internal, that threatens black dignity in Memphis. It is a visual manifesto, a digital moment, and a call for action. You see, through this campaign, Anthony F. Elmore and Linda Nettles Harris are building what Memphis never gave New Chicago. What is that? A digital footprint. They are creating a press archive, organizing oral histories, documenting environmental and political injustices that have plagued the community. They are using many digital platforms to syndicate their message, generate backlinks, and ensure that New Chicago's history is preserved and accessible in a digital format. This is not just about visibility, it's about justice. It's about restoring what was stolen. You see, Rubber to Racism is a movement born in plain truth and spiritual courage. It is Memphis refusing to be erased. It is New Chicago's reclaiming its dignity. It is Dr. King's dream standing tall against Trump troops and local betrayal. The fight continues, but the silence has been broken. The story is being told. The digital monument is rising. Memphis is speaking. New Chicago is rising. Rubber to Racism is medicine.